Tariffs postponed. That is the, I guess, the title for this segment. And again, just to reiterate, United States announced 25% tariffs on Canadian goods and coming into the United States. That was to take place on or go through as of February the 4th. And on Monday, the 3rd, we got the news that, I guess, initially that Mexico had struck a deal to delay tariffs for at least 30 days. And many of us were wondering if Canada would work out a similar deal. And yes, indeed, we did. And the agreement simply was to create what I guess is called a fentanyl czar. The President of the United States, President Trump, is very concerned about the amount of fentanyl drug moving across the border from Canada into the United States, unfortunately causing a lot of death in the U.S., fentanyl and overdose, etc. And so the president is very concerned about that. He's also concerned about illegal immigration coming in from our country. He also made mention about the deficit between the two countries. So there were a lot of things that were spoken about. And in the end, Prime Minister Trudeau has agreed to put some troops on the border. As much as 10,000 troops will patrol our border with the U.S. to help stem the tide of two things: fentanyl crossing the border as well as illegal immigration. And there will be an appointment of a fentanyl czar who will oversee and be the liaison between Canada and the U.S. So all avoided for now. But of course, in roughly or just under 30 days' time, we may have to go through a bunch of volatility once again. Obviously, the hope is that we'll be able to come to some agreement with the United States to avoid any tariffs being placed on our goods. Wanted to just touch briefly on what exactly a tariff is. A bunch of questions came up recently and kind of got the feeling that many people, sort of know what tariffs are, but they weren't exactly sure. Our first I guess, diagram or chart, picture, if you want to call it. What is a tariff? And what is a tariff? Well, a tariff is a tax imposed on foreign-made goods paid by the importing business to its home country's government. Like all taxes, they provide a modest source of government revenue. Several countries have also used tariffs to help fledgling industry, so small or I guess industry in its early stages, at home, hoping to shelter local firms from foreign competitors. Some tariffs are also meant to address unfair practices that other countries have used to make their exports artificially cheap. And I guess that last part could be, I guess, a good description from a China standpoint. Obviously, when you buy goods coming from China, their labor tends to be a lot cheaper than the labor here in North America and other places around the world, and therefore they're able to make goods a lot cheaper, and that is the main reason. So that's what a tariff is. And so it doesn't mean that if there is a tariff on Canadian goods that U.S. Consumers cannot buy our goods. It just means that the government will put an extra 25% on the cost of those goods, hoping that the U.S. consumer, instead of paying an extra 25%, will buy something made in the U.S. that doesn't have the tariff, that hopefully will be more attractive or cheaper to the consumer. And that's really what this is all about. And there's been some back and forth who actually will pick up that tariff, who's going to end up swallowing the higher cost of that. Is it going to be the company bringing in the goods, the company exporting? Is it going to be the country? Who is going to cover that tariff? And I think it's President Trump seems to think that it would be the company in Canada that would swallow that cost, or Canada in general would swallow these costs. But everybody knows that that's not the case. In many instances, it's the business that's importing the goods that ends up covering that cost to make it more affordable for the consumer. We have another chart here talking about Trump's new tariffs targeting major exporters to the United States. And you can see here, China, Mexico, and Canada, the three largest exporters to the United States. And you can see basically how much these countries export to the U.S. and how important, or how perhaps difficult it would be for the U.S. to put tariffs on these three countries. We've already seen the U.S. putting tariffs on China. They seem to be able to handle that. And in fact, China has already retaliated with their own tariffs on U.S. goods going into China. So that has actually gone through and taken place. But many believe that a tariff on Canadian goods would hurt many industries, such as the automotive industry, and what's going to happen in Michigan with how much the automobile industry makes up of Michigan growth and GDP, and how difficult it would be for the auto industry, because as we know, to build a car, there are many parts that go into building a car, and how many times those parts cross the border between the United States and Canada, and every time it does, are they going to be hit with a 25% tariff? That's just one area. The other things that we saw come up: alcohol. Ontario is a very large purchaser of alcohol from the US, and the Premier Doug Ford, has said that if the tariffs go through, he will no longer allow US alcohol to be sold on the shelves at the LCBO. And we've seen other provinces as well, BC as an example, do something similar. We've also heard boycotts of US business, US companies not being able to bid on certain infrastructure projects in Ontario. So there was a lot going on, a lot of back and forth, a lot of uncertainty. And of course, the market did not like that. And we saw the effects on the market, and we saw the effects on all of us being quite negative. So the good news is, at this point in time, tariffs have been postponed for 30 days. The market has definitely regained a lot of its losses, actually all of its losses that we saw right off the top on Monday. And the hope for the markets and the hope for all of us that we can come to some agreement with the United States to avoid tariffs coming into play at the end of January, at the end of February, beginning of March. So we'll see what the demands are from the United States, from President Trump. He may throw in a few new ideas and new demands, which I think many of us are expecting, but hopefully cooler heads can prevail and we can avoid a tariff. So now I want to get to the part of our show today where we will have an interview with Jeff Rubin, and he's going to be talking on a lot of these ideas: tariffs, the economy, and give us a glimpse as to what he is thinking. The dollar, another one that he touches on, and I think a lot of you will get a lot from his interview, and I look forward, to showing you this interview right now.